Oh, thank you very much, Madam Speaker, and I am pleased to rise to speak to Bill C-208, which has to do with the transfer of small businesses and family farms and fishing corporations between family members. It'll be no secret to members in the House here that New Democrats definitely believe that the ultra-rich and the wealthy ought to be paying their fair share, and I think we've done a very good job of making the case for that in this Parliament and proposing some really concrete measures for how that might be done, Madam Speaker. But we have also been champions for small businesses in Canada because we know that they're the backbone of the Canadian economy, that 80% of the jobs in our economy are created by small business owners, and we appreciate farmers and fishers and what they contribute to the Canadian economy and to the world as well, Madam Speaker, when we talk about Canadian farmers and all of the food that we export, outside of Canada, the world over. So these are important industries, and they're industries that oftentimes, or businesses within it, whether it's the farm or whether it's a business, that are developed by families and that become part of the family. And those families are known in their communities. And as the former member was talking about, they have relations with suppliers and others within their communities. And being able to pass that family business on to their children is important. It's important for the family from an identity point of view, and from the family's own economic point of view, but it can also be important to communities as well, that sense of stability and ensuring that the people who are employed at those businesses and the people who do business with those businesses continue to enjoy those relationships and the economic benefits of them. So that's why I'm quite pleased to stand in support of this bill. I know there was some talk earlier, the member from Winnipeg North was talking about the NDP's concern for tax evasion, and he's absolutely right. We can talk about tax havens. We've had private members' bills before this House from New Democratic members that are serious about taking action on the biggest tax evaders. But the small businesses in our communities who, I'm thinking of some of the small businesses that I know, a sign company, for instance, where a husband and wife developed a business over 30 or 40 years and then want to pass that on to their children. Those aren't the people that are shunting money out to Barbados and the Cayman Islands and other such places. And the fact of the matter is that if they choose to sell to their children under the current tax rules, they're going to pay considerably more than if they sell to a complete stranger. So there's a principle of fairness there. And it just doesn't make sense that by selling a business that is the life's work of a family within the family, that you would be penalized and have to pay more. And that's what we're trying to address here. I think the member for Winnipeg North misunderstands the bill, frankly, when he mentions the capital gains exemption, because of course the very point of the bill is that if you're selling to an immediate family member, you don't benefit from the capital gains exemption because that sale is not treated as taxed as a capital gain. It's taxed as a dividend. So the whole point of the legislation is actually to be able to have those family members be able to benefit from the very capital gain lifetime exemption that the member for Winnipeg North was speaking to. Now, I think there are some members who don't necessarily expect that when the member for Winnipeg North gets up to speak that he's going to have a very detailed knowledge of what he's speaking about. But that's no excuse for his government or for the ministry or for other members of his party for that matter. They should hold themselves to a higher standard and really come to have an appreciation of what's in the legislation. So why when New Democrats are so concerned about tax evasion, do we support this bill? Well, a couple of things, Madam Speaker. One of the things that's in this bill also is in order to get this different tax treatment under capital gains as opposed to dividends, the family member who receives the business or who purchases the business has to continue to be the owner of that business for 5 years as opposed to the current 2, is my understanding. And so it is meant to promote the idea that if the sale is happening, it's happening because someone within the family genuinely wants to take over the business, not just flip it for sale. And so if within those 5 years the business is sold again, then it's retroactively treated as a dividend sale and taxed appropriately, taxed as it is under the current legislation, because at that point it's not about successorship within the family. It's become something else. So that's one of the measures. But also, I think it's important to say that one of the things that gives me comfort is that this bill isn't the product of one political party that might have a particular agenda. A former NDP member of Parliament, Guy Caron, developed this private members bill, put a lot of work into it. He was somebody who, as the NDP's finance critic, did excellent work on tax evasion and was very concerned about it. It was one of the things that motivated him to get into politics. And he did that not just as an amateur within politics who was assigned the finance portfolio, but he did it as somebody who worked as an economist his whole life prior to getting into politics. So understood very well not just the issue of tax evasion, but also the particular dynamics of this bill, and sought to craft a bill that really would honor the idea of being able to pass a business down within generations in a family, and to do that in the right way that doesn't just become a loophole or an excuse to evade taxes, something that New Democrats fiercely oppose. So, you know, those are some of the elements, both concretely within the bill in terms of what the legislation does, but also where the legislation comes from, that give me confidence that this is not about introducing another means for tax evasion into the tax code, but is really about settling a fundamental unfairness where people who spend their life pouring their heart and soul into a business and make it a success, whose children oftentimes have been part of that success, and then want to ensure that that gets passed on within the family, can do so without paying a large financial penalty. And that also helps ensure that these assets for our communities stay in local hands, because sometimes the only people with the capital to buy a business are foreign investors, and that's sometimes what happens, whether it's with small businesses or with farms. It ends up being either large corporations or foreign investors who end up purchasing these things, and it makes more sense for the family if the differential is $400,000 or $500,000, as we've heard in some of these cases. The family comes to the decision that they are in fact better off not doing what their heart wants to do, which is to keep that business or that farm within the family, but to make a more hard-nosed financial decision about their best interest. This would allow for them to maintain or to take off the table that factor that makes it far more profitable for the family to sell to a stranger than to keep it within the family. So those are some of the issues at play. And as I say, this is something that New Democrats believe in, but it's also part of a package of advocacy that New Democrats have brought for a long time, and then particularly within this Parliament. I've been really impressed with our small business critic, the Member of Parliament for Courtenay Alberni, who was right out there out of the gate when the pandemic began, a former small business owner himself, advocating for a 75% wage subsidy when the government said it would only be 10. He knows how important it was to get beyond just covering payroll costs and actually providing wage replacement. He was the loudest voice out of the gate on the need for a commercial rent subsidy. He's been advocating for an extension of the Canada Emergency Business Account loan program. We saw a small extension in the most recent budget. Glad to see that. More work to do. So all that to say that, you know, New Democrats believe in small business. We're advocating for small business. We see this as part of a package that is important for small businesses and for farmers, so that they can keep all of the hard work of their family in their family when the time comes to pass that business on. Thank you very much, Madam Speaker.